Welcome to the brand new DB11 V8. Instead of staying around the launch location, we thought we'd spend a couple of days with this car and actually really get to know it. So we're going on a bit of an adventure to Andorra. Now, before we talk about anything else, let's talk about the interior. Yes, it's very purple. It looks a little like something Willy Wonka might have designed, or perhaps it's made from the leather of the milk a cow. I actually quite like it though. It's sort of grown on me. Anyway, less about the lurid leather. What you really want to know about is the engine. Instead of the 600 brake horsepower V12, there is a 503 brake horsepower 4-litre V8. With 2 turbochargers snuggled in the heart of the V. It's an engine that has essentially been lifted from Mercedes AMG, and it will also be used in the new Vantage. As such, this is a pretty important moment for the company, as it signposts the way to its immediate future. So is this engine going to be a success for Aston Martin? Well, yes. I mean, I think it's brilliant in Mercedes. They've done a fantastic job with making a turbocharged engine feel not only responsive but characterful too. Now Aston obviously it's not just plug and play. They haven't just taken it straight out of an AMG GT and put it in this. They've changed intake, exhausts, and they've really worked on the sound. So they've tried to take out some of that really low guttural sound that you get in Mercedes and make it more Aston Martin. Have they succeeded? Well, yes, they have. It doesn't sound instantly sort of, you don't sort of think, oh, I don't know, I'm in a Mercedes, but it's got an Aston badge on it. You don't think that at all. Do you notice the 100 less brake horsepower? Not really. To be honest, there's still 500 brake horsepower, which is ample. And remarkably, the V8 puts out 498 pounds-foot of torque, or to put it another way, it only puts out 18 pounds-foot less than the mighty V12. Admittedly, the V8 reaches its maximum torque slightly higher in the rev range, which means it doesn't feel quite as effortlessly brawny, and that arguably makes it more drivable. In the V12, I often found it was best to stay a gear higher for the corners and lean on the torque, but the V8 is happier to rev. Flat out, the V8 falls 13 miles an hour short of the V12's 200 mile an hour top speed, but against the stopwatch, from a standing start, the V8 hits 62 miles an hour in a time of 4 seconds dead, just a tenth shy of the V12. Andorra is extraordinary. It's very beautiful. You've got these amazingly steep, high-sided valleys, but it appears to be a sort of architectural black hole. Of course, we care about the roads, not the buildings, but there are plenty of other reasons that people make the journey to this little Pyrenean principality. Some make the journey to play in the mountains on skis and bicycles. Some come for the cheap petrol, which would certainly make running a DB11 easier. Others come for the inordinately cheap booze, while some travel here just for the cheap cigarettes. I don't actually smoke, but I do have fond memories of the race and rally cars that some of these logos were once attached to. Talking of cars, back to the DB11. It's not just the engine that has changed in this iteration of the DB11. There have been a few other updates and tweaks too. Some of them, like the slight change in brake balance due to the 2% shift in weight distribution, you don't really notice. But some things you definitely do notice. Principal among them, the steering. Now, it was very light in the V12 when that first came out. I actually quite liked it. It made it sort of added to that relaxed feel. But in this, they've added a bit more weight, and it definitely gives you even more confidence. You've got that very quick front end, and because the weight balance has changed slightly, they've stiffened up the rear, so you don't get the sort of the movement diagonally across the car as much. So it's easier to play through the corners. And if you step over the limit, then it's beautifully controlled. Although Aston has pushed the DB11 with the V8 further towards the sort of sports car end of the spectrum, it's still a GT. That really has to be made very clear. It's still comfortable, it's still got the nice long travel feel to it in GT mode. It's just that when you switch to Sport or Sport Plus, there is a bit more agility to it. I still feel like you've got a lot out front, a big nose. It's not a mid-engine supercar, but You can get it into the corners, particularly the more open corners, and then through the tighter ones you just use the throttle to help you round. In the wet, this car is still quite spiky, but it's somehow more easily managed than the V12 was, which just wanted to spin up its rear wheels at every opportunity. And we certainly found some rain. On the hairpins up to Arcalis, to be precise, a road used in this year's Tour de France. Thankfully, the DB11 remains a beautifully balanced car, with its simple front-engine rear-drive setup, meaning that if you do decide to turn the traction control off, it is fun rather than frightening. The fact that it weighs 115 kilos less certainly helps the V8 feel more poised, the smaller engine and the reduction in cooling paraphernalia associated with the engine accounting for the drop in weight. Of course, the V8 is also lighter on the wallet, costing £13,000 less than the V12. Just another thing that surely adds to this DB11's appeal. In many ways, the DB11 V8 is the one to go for. Does that make the V12 redundant though? Well, no, because in the same way that the V8 Bentley Conti GT is the one to go for, people still want the W12. They want the daddy, it's the big one. They want to be able to spend the extra money. So I think the V12 is safe in terms of sales, but I would suggest you buy the V8. It's great, it's really, really good. As you're probably starting to gather, we covered a lot of ground during our time in Andorra. In our search for that one perfect piece of tarmac, we encountered pretty much every sort of weather imaginable. We saw helicopters lifting caravans. We fixed a puncture.
Hang in there! We can do this!
We dodged cows. We chased the light. We got lost. We constantly marvelled at our surroundings. In short, we crammed a lot into our weekend with the DB11. But at the end of it all, with the sky sprinkling autumnal snow on the bare brows of the mountains, we found ourselves on one very special piece of road. The Port de Cabus, a dead-end road nestled up against the western border with Spain. This road is just breathtaking, where it goes round the huge bowl. It's just beautiful. And here we are, at the end of the road. That's it. I love a dead-end road. I know they seem sort of pointless. I mean, there is nothing up here. But it's the sort of engineering equivalent of just going for a drive on Sunday morning with no purpose other than to enjoy a car. I'm so glad somebody built this road. It is just amazing.